Hi everyone, trust you all are doing well and welcome back to another lesson in Livewire. And if you're new, welcome to the channel. Alright, so in this one what we're going to be learning about is events in Livewire. Right, how to fire off events, how to listen for those events in Livewire or in vanilla JavaScript. Alright, so let's get started. Right, so there are three types of ways we can actually fire off events in Livewire. The first one is we can fire that off in the view, in the component itself, and in JavaScript. Now, in this case, let's just quickly show you the first two. Now, we got a connect button right here. If you guys remember from the previous lesson, we can emit an event and then we can fire off the event called connected right here. So the event that we're firing off is called connected. So this is done from the view. All right, so let's quickly open our Livewire component called connect button. So this one right here. All right, and the other way, so this is obviously in the view, and another way that we can emit an event is we can call it this emit. Right, so we can fire off an event from the component itself called connected. Like this. All right, so now what we have done is we fired off an event in our view, okay, or we can fire off an event in our component, and the third one is we can fire it off in JavaScript. Now, let's quickly show you how to do that as well. So, but I will go through the process again, but just bear with me. So this is in the view, we can emit an event. This is in the component, we can this.emit an event, and the third one is in JavaScript. So I'm quickly going to show you how to do that. Right, so now I got my index page. My page is home.index open right here. So what I can do between the script tags right here, I can just put a Livewire like this, Livewire and .on, okay. Now what we can do from here is we can actually, just instead of on, we can actually do an emit. We can emit the connected event like this. Right. So JavaScript, in JavaScript itself, can do a Livewire emit like this. All right. But I'm not going to be working with this one. I'm just going to work with the first two. Since we're learning about Livewire, is so that we don't have to code a lot of things in JavaScript. All right. So I'm not going to be focusing too much on this. I'm just going to focus on the Livewire type of stuff. All right. Now, I just wanted to show you that you can do that. Right. Now, in this case, we're firing off an event from the view itself. So for this one, I'm just not going to do anything right there. All right. Now, the thing is, you must remember, when you fire off an event, there needs to be something that listens for that event. All right, so let's go to our component here. Now, in order to listen for an event, we just do a protected listeners like this and equal that to what event are we going to listen for. And in this case, we want to listen for that connected event right there. Now, in this case, if you can see, we're listening for this naming convention right there, right? So we're listening for that connected right there, right? So in this case, what we're going to do is we listen for the connected event. And what are we going to do when we fire off that connected, when we receive that connected event, okay? So we're firing it off. We listen for that event, okay? So what happens when we fire off this event? I want to call on the method called connect. All right. So we're listening for that event, and when that event fires off, we listen for it, okay? We're seeing, all right, it did fire off, and what we're going to do is we're going to call on that connect method. Now, inside our function right here, we see that we have a connect method. Remember, this is the method name right there. All right, so what we're going to do in this case is we're going to do a die and dump and say received connected event. Just like this. All right, just to kind of show you how it works. All right. Now, in this case, so when we click this button right here, okay, so let's go to the browser quick. So when we click this button, it fires off an event called connected. Then we listen for it in our component. All right. So then we listen for it in our component right here. All right. We're going to listen for that event. Then we fire off this method called connect, and then we die and dump. All right. So let's quickly test it. All right. So let's click that connect button. As you can see, received connected event. All right. Awesome stuff. Now, the thing is, what you can do, now in this case, let's say the method name and the event name is the same. Okay, so let's change this. Instead of being connect, we change it to connected. So if the event name right there and the method name are the same, you actually don't have to include the method. You can actually just do it as is. All right, so the method name, so if we emit that event right there, the method name and the event name are the same. We don't have to specify the method. Okay, so let's see if it still works. All right, so let me refresh this. And so if I click this, I'm supposed to get the die and dump. Now, as you can see, we get the same thing happening right there. Now, for practical reasons, I would not normally emit an event from the view, but I just wanted to show you it is possible to do so. Because in some cases, you actually want to emit an event from the view because the button or whatever the case may be might just to submit something to let the component know what is happening. All right. So in this case, we're going to call on the method called connected. Okay. All right. So we got a connected. So if we click this button, it's going to call on that method called connected. This one right here. Just to prove to you, if you guys remember from the previous one, I'm just going to comment that quickly. So let's just see if we get the die and dump. Let me just change this to connected. Right, so let me press this button, connect. As you can see, we're going to the method itself. Right, now another thing that I want to do now is I want to emit an event, a global event. Right, so in this method right here, I want to emit a global event called connected. Remember, there are 4 ways we can scope the emission. All right, so we can emit globally. All right, let me just show you all of them. All right, we can do this dot emit. This one is the global. Let me just actually type them out. All right, let's start off with the first one, the one that we just done here. This one emits a global event called connected. Now that means any Livewire component that if they want to listen for the event, they can listen for that event called connected because it's done for global. So it's emitted global, right? The next one is it's going to be called emit up. All right, like this. If I put emit up like this, basically what this one is, it actually just pass an event to the parent Livewire component. All right, so if you have a Livewire component and inside that Livewire component, you have another Livewire component, and that Livewire component can basically just emit event to its parent. Right, obviously the emit self, that is self-explanatory because it actually just emit an event to the component itself. All right, and the next one is emit to. All right, so if we change this to emit to, I can actually submit an event to a specific Livewire component. Emphasis on Livewire component right there. Now the thing is, what you do is, in this case, emit to. Now we have a Livewire component called user details, and you obviously add that right there. So in this case, we will add user details right here. So we want to emit an event to user details, and obviously we need to pass in the event parameters right here. So connected like this. All right, so we're passing the event to user details, right? And we're passing the name of the event called connected to that specific one. All right, so that's it right there. Right, so in this case, let's go to the global one and actually listen for that event. So let's go to the emit one. So we're going to pass in a global one called connected. All right, now I'm just going to remove the die and dump. All right, now in our user details right here, I'm going to listen for that event called connected right there. Right, so if you guys remember, if we call the method name the same as the event that we're listening for, we don't actually have to specify it right here. Okay. All right. So in this case, if we put it in here connected, they're both the same. We don't have to specify it. So when we actually just put in one there, Livewire will automatically think the event name is connected and the method name is connected. All right. So just remember that. So in this case, if you see one, just remember the method name is also there. Okay. So now what will happen is we will, let's say, connected in parent component like this. Okay, not in parent component. This is just in a global component. I'm just going to put this in user details component. Right, now the thing is, we're in a emitting event. Remember, from the connect button, we submitted a global event called connected. All right, so when we click this button, it fires off this method called connected. In this one, it fires off the method called connected, emits that event called connected. Then in our user details, we're listening for that event, and then we just die and dump that right there. So we need to see if we get this right here. Right, so let me refresh the browser quickly. Obviously, you can do whatever you want. I'm just doing a die and dump, but you can actually have many different things that you actually want to do when something fires off. Okay, so let's quickly click the connect. So now our user details needs to be shown right there. As you can see, connected in user details right here. Awesome stuff. Right, so basically what have happened now is when we click the connected button, it fired off the, we call on that method inside our component. So in the connected, we fired off an event called connected. We listen for that event in our listeners right there, and then we called on that method connected, and we die and dumped it right there. Now there's another thing that we can do. Now let's say, as you can see, I've got this browser event right here. Now another thing that we can do is we can actually listen for an event or submit an event, fire off an event inside Livewire, okay? So that we can receive that event in vanilla JavaScript. Now in this case, I don't want to fire off that event. In this one, I want to fire it off in actually the button itself. So let me just copy this. Otherwise, I have to let it to do too many requests. So let me just fire it off in this one. All right. So in this case, I'm not going to listen for anything. All right. So when we click this button right here, okay, we need to dispatch a browser event inside our connected button right here. Okay, so we fire off that event. Now, let's go to our home. Let's quickly pages, resources, views. All right, in my home.index, I'm going to put two script tags quickly right here. All right, then I'm going to add a window dot add event listener. This is vanilla JavaScript. Okay, so listener like this. All right, then I'm going to listen for that connected event. And then what am I going to do? Let me just console log. What can I console log? Connected. Let me connected JavaScript, just so that we know that it couldn't be from anything else. Okay, let's just put in connected JavaScript right there. All right. So what happens now is if we click this button, all right, it's going to call on the method in the connect button right here. All right. Then it's going to dispatch a browser event called connected. Then here we're going to listen for that event, and then we're going to console log JavaScript. Okay. All right. So let me open up our DevTools. All right. So what will happen now is if we click this button, we need to get that event, all right, and listen for that event. So if we click there, as you can see, connected JavaScript. Let me make it a little bit bigger for you guys right there. So as you can see, we're getting that right there. Now, you might ask yourself, but why would I want to do that? The reason why I want to use Livewire is so that I don't have to deal with JavaScript. But there is sometimes, let's say some users wants to use pop-ups or notifications or models or whatever the case may be. You can send an event actually to your JavaScript framework or whatever the case you might use, or the library, just to do a pop-up or a toast or whatever notification. You can do that by just saying like dispatching a browser event like that. All right. So that's good. All right. So that's how we can actually listen for events in JavaScript and actually dispatch them to the browser. Now, another thing that we can do as well is, let's say we emit again. Since we are with JavaScript now, we're going to emit a global event called connected. Now, the thing is, you can actually even listen for that event also in JavaScript. All right, how we do that is we can actually just do a Livewire .on, right, on the event called connected. All right, then we're going to do an arrow function. That is just ES6 syntax, okay? So if you don't understand that, it's completely fine, but it's just vanilla JavaScript ES6. All right, so what we're going to do is we're just going to do console.log and just say JavaScript event. All right, so let's do that and see if we can actually listen for this event in JavaScript. All right, so in our browser, let's open our DevTools. Let me just make it a bit bigger. So if I press this connect right here, as you can see, JavaScript event listen to. All right, so obviously that event is being fired off and is being listened in our user details as well. So that's why we're getting that error. Let me quickly fix that. Now, as you can see, it's listening for that event, but that method called connected, this one right here, is not there. So I'm just quickly going to delete this as well. So if you see errors, don't be afraid of them. Just quickly delete this one right here. So let's quickly do that again. And so let me click the connect. As you can see, the JavaScript event listened to. All right. So that's basically how event work in Livewire. And quite easy. Now you might wonder, why would you need any events to be done in vanilla JavaScript? Why would you listen for that? Like I said before, that is quite handy if you want to listen for events that you just want to maybe just do a pop-up toast. So let's say a post is created, but you want to use a third library just to display a message to say like post deleted or whatever the case may be. You can actually listen for those events and actually use whatever library and actually just create whatever thing you want to do. All right, so that's it for this lesson, guys. If you like the video, please give it a like. If you don't like the video, please give it a dislike, and please consider subscribing to the channel. It will help us out a lot. I want to get to 1,000 subscribers. It will help me to get polls and all that kind of stuff done on YouTube, so where I can actually get more feedback from our viewers to, if let's say, what kind of videos would you like to watch and all that kind of stuff. It's a whole lot of things that I want to do for the community, but yes, I want to really get to 1,000 subscribers. I will really appreciate that. And yes, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Adios.